Well, good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of Ormond Beach, a welcoming community of compassion and acceptance. I'm Dan Gribben. I invite you to our virtual worship service this morning. In-person worship is suspended until further notice, but we'll continue to hold our virtual discussion group and virtual worship services every Sunday until it's safe to hold large group functions again in our building. Now on to announcements. The link to the Zoom service is always available on the UUCOB website. And that website is www.uuormond.org. Let me see if I can get my little slideshow to go forward. There we go. The other announcement is that the fall rummage sale is postponed until we can safely collect the material and hold our sale. So when we get the all clear, we'll let everybody know. I want to remind everybody to send in their pledges. And if you'd like to make an additional donation, you can come on to the website for PayPal or credit card donations. But otherwise, send a check with an indication that it's your pledge check. At the sound of the chime, our service begins. Rita Sheeler will deliver our call to worship.
Good morning, everyone. In this home, we bring our hunger for awakening. We bring compassionate hearts and a will towards justice. Into this home, we bring courage to walk on after hard losses. Into this home, we bring our joy, gratitude for ordinary blessings. By our gathering, we bless this place. In its shelter, we know ourselves blessed.
Thank you, Rita. I invite you to light a chalice at home if you have one nearby. We light this chalice, a single flame, which I hope kindles many hearts this morning. Let this flame unite us in virtual community and remind us of each other's presence as we worship from many singular rooms. Let this flame inspire in us faith and courage to face these difficult times. Let this flame be our guide in making sense of a chaotic world. And let its light show us the way to beloved community, both near and far. I'll lead you in our congregational covenant. Love is the spirit of this congregation, and service is our aim. To dwell together in peace and freedom, to seek the truth, and to help one another, these are our goals. Janet will play Spirit of Life, and we invite you to sing along at home under mute. We have a joy from Barb Evely. She writes that being able to join the UU group on Zoom has been wonderful. Last week's service and music she found brilliant, a rare blessing of the pandemic. Let me offer a meditation to acknowledge concerns which remain unspoken. In our darkest hour, it's understandable that we might question the value of much that we have believed, much that we have worked so hard to achieve. May we reflect in those long moments of discouragement on the healing presence in our lives of so many faithful friends. And may we open the door of our need to their sustaining gift of loving kindness. Rita Sheeler will share our reading.
Today's reading is an excerpt from a News Journal article on December 23rd, 2019. Starving Seniors. Memphis, Tennessee. Army veteran Eugene Milligan, 75 years old and blind. He uses a wheelchair since losing his left leg to a diabetes, and he gets dialysis for kidney failure. As he was struggling to get enough to eat earlier this year, he ended up in the hospital after burning himself while blowing water for oatmeal. The long stay in the hospital actually knocked him off the Meals on Wheels rolls, and he stopped getting food and only started getting food from his son, a generous off-duty nurse, and a nearby church. Many times I felt like I was starving, he said. There's neighbors who need food too. There's people in the dialysis who need food. There's hunger everywhere. While the plight of hungry children elicits support, and it can be handled in schools, the plight of older Americans is shrouded in isolation and generation pride.
Our pulpit presentation this morning will be delivered by our very own Rita Sheeler. Rita is speaking on the topic of hunger. The title of her presentation is Then and Now, What's Next?
Good morning. One of the things that struck me when I was thinking about this service was the differences and similarities between now and the Great Depression. In 1933, there were 138 million people in this country. Today, we have 2.5 times that number. A loaf of bread was only 10 cents. Today, it is $3. At the beginning of the Depression, when Herbert Hoover was president, he and Congress did not take the crisis seriously. Hoover actually said that there were no hungry people in America, which was partially true if you wanted a diet of turnips. Hoover, and at the height of the Depression, there were 84 soup kitchens in New York City alone, and Hoovervilles and shantytowns were popping up everywhere. When FDR became president, there were approximately 12 million people unemployed in the US. Today, we have twice that. Today, we have his legacy. We have Social Security, unemployment insurance, Medicare, Medicaid. But Social Security is only available to older Americans as well as Medicare. And Medicaid is only available to those who are very poor or handicapped. And you have to be employed to buy into unemployment insurance. These similarities make the next election even more important. One of the similarities that make this, one of the things also struck me is how romanticized we made the Great Depression in the 30s. Like riding the rails, which actually meant hanging on to the framework of the boxcar only a few inches from the grade. Or sitting around the campfire eating hobo stew. Are hobos marrying heiresses? And one thing we have now that they didn't have in the 30s is a pandemic. I wonder what the future will make of this depression. No one knows how long this depression will last. It's thought we only came out of the 30s depression because of the war. And in fact, in 1937-38, FDR thought we were coming out of it and started backing off on relief efforts, only to have the depression come back with a vengeance. Only time will tell how long this depression will last. But today, right here in this congregation, we can do something to alleviate hunger. The U.S. Department of Agriculture estimates that more than 30% of the food in America is wasted Besides food waste at home, there's also a lot of commercial food waste. Restaurants prepare more food than customers buy, and grocery stores end up with perishables reading their expiration date. More Americans make more than enough food for our population. We are known as the breadbasket of the world. We export huge quantities of food. So why do millions of Americans go to bed hungry every night? When I originally proposed this service, I was thinking about hunger of the elderly, but COVID-19 has put a whole new perspective on that. In 2019, 14 million Americans went to bed hungry. It is estimated that in 2020, that number will be 54 million. 54 million. No one wants to guess what it will be in 2021. A while ago, I asked if people had known hunger and where their next meal was coming from, and several people actually raised their hands. I myself remember when spaghetti and ketchup was a meal and McDonald's was a treat. Please remember those feelings during this talk, and for those who didn't raise their hand, try to imagine. Many people facing hunger are forced to make tough choices between buying food and medical bills. I myself when I was a tour guide in DC, heard on the House floor a congressperson begging for more money for food because his constituents had to make those very choices. They also need to choose between rent and transportation. This struggle goes beyond harming an individual and a family's future. It can harm all of us. Hunger and health are deeply connected. People who are food insecure are disproportionately affected by diet-sensitive chronic diseases such as diabetes and high blood pressure. This is why COVID is affecting poor people much more adversely. With job losses skyrocketing and because of COVID, recent surveys found that nearly 4 in 10 had little to eat or difficult obtaining healthy food. So here are 10 ways you can end hunger. First, power up your food drive. Emergency food providers can purchase and acquire food in bulk, which means that $1 donated can go many times further than $1 spent on cans of food for a food drive. If you want to power up a food drive, ask people to donate dollar for dollar. Advocate for federal nutrition programs. About 1 in 4 Americans depend on USDA food and nutrition assistance to help feed themselves and their families. These food programs are 20 times more effective than food pantries and soup kitchens. Volunteer. Make food at home and deliver it or have it picked up for food pantry or soup kitchens. We could do that right here at the kitchen at the church. Many people need support grassroots solutions. Many people in need are making their own change and working to improve access to food in their own communities. We can support these efforts in our community with gardens, co-ops, and farmers markets. Study. By studying the problem, we can better understand and offer more and better solutions. Increase the minimum wage. As the cost of living rises, incomes aren't keeping up, and many people are finding they have to cut food costs to pay other bills. Support food workers. Food workers are some of the lowest paid workers in America. I know, I was one of them. It is ironic that more than half of these workers need food assistance and are on Medicaid. Immigration reform. 1/3 of undocumented immigrants live in poverty. Immigration reform has the potential to grant immigrants access to both government benefits and improve the quality of life and alleviate hunger. And be an ally. Dispel stereotypes and misconceptions about hunger and poverty. Many hungry people hesitate to ask for help because of the stigma and shame of poverty. Be an advocate. And finally, spread the word. Get these numbers out. National Hunger Hotline. 1-866-3-HUNGRY. 1-866-3-HUNGRY or 1-877-8-HAMBRE. 1-877-8-HAMBRE. And talk to the Council on Aging about spreading the word about alleviating hunger. One suggestion that I've seen recently is something we can do right here. Free food. Starting with free books, and ask Jenny if you want to know about that. She's been doing it for years. What happens is now you put, besides book, people are putting food. And just like free books, place one where you place one and take one, you take food if you need it and replace it when you can or somebody else will. This is now expanding to fresh food. People are putting refrigerators outside with easy access and loading them with fresh vegetables and fruit. The same thing is true here, that people who need, and then putting a shelf unit next to it with perishable foods. We could do this right here at the church. Another thing is to stop wasting food in our homes. Think about the organics you are throwing away that wind up in landfills. Composting is an easy thing to do and puts those organics that you throw away back into the soil. If you don't have your own garden, find someone who does and offer them your compost. To find out more, Jenny Nazak has an article in this month's Jotter about composting. To sum up, we can do things right here and right now to alleviate hunger in our community. I know it's a trying time. Many of us are anxious, and many of these things can be done on the phone or by donations. Let it be so.
Thank you, Rita. I might add that there are TED Talks on the subject of hunger, one of which I listened to recently. A young woman has mobilized throughout the country restaurants and grocery stores. She's got an app that allows them to match up with Uber drivers and Lyft drivers who take that food that otherwise would have been trashed and wasted and take it to people who need food. It's a really uplifting TED Talk, and I think you could access it just by searching at TED under the topic hunger.
There are also many apps that food drives are using to stay in touch with restaurants and wholesalers. So when they have food that they want to get rid of, they can use that app in order to get it out to people who need it.
Yeah, that's a really encouraging recent development, I believe. Well, it's time to extinguish our chalice. And my own chalice carrier is about to arrive on the scene here. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Rita will offer our benediction.
Someone asked me once whether or not I believed in God. I don't. I don't believe in an all-knowing, all-seeing being. But I do believe that each and every one of us has a little God in us. And we can do God-like things like feeding the poor, housing the homeless, or clothing the needy. When I think of hunger, I picture this little girl on TV. The announcer says, for $1 a day, you can feed this starving little girl. $1 a day? How can you feed someone for $1 a day? It must be a scam. But then I remembered that for every dollar you give, if you give it to a government agent or another NGO, that dollar is worth 20 times more. you can feed a lot of people for $20 a day. But imagine, just imagine, that of 100 people right here in this congregation gave $1 a day. Think about it. Let it be so. Go in peace. Amen.
Thank you, Rita. Good to be with